afternoon. Thank you. This is the Monday, February 28th meeting of the Affordable Housing Committee. We have one item for consideration on our regular agenda today, and then we have a special presentation from some presenters, Emily Barrett and KT Wiley, on behalf of the Vanderbilt University Action Research class on evictions in Davidson County. So huge thanks to y'all for joining us here today. But we will begin with the piece of legislation that we have for consideration. This is BL 2021-912 by Allen, O'Connell, Suara, and others. This amends Chapter 2.213 of the Metro Code to create a mechanism for the implementation of the Inclusionary Housing Incentive Program. And we will go to the bill's sponsor, Berkeley Allen, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for approval with a brief explanation.
Can I get a second? All right. Properly seconded, and go ahead.
Thank you, and I will try to keep this brief. This is actually a companion bill to BL 832, which is on public hearing, also on second reading. And what the group of them together do is create a subsidy for units in multifamily housing in the downtown code area. If the building uses the, I'm going to face this direction, uses the downtown code's bonus floor height program that enables developers to get extra height if they provide a public good. There's kind of a menu of public goods that they can choose from, but we're adding affordable housing to that. And with this, we will use the additional property tax that is generated, which is what this spreadsheet indicates. That if you add another floor, that's additional square footage. The assessor has given us some rule of thumb downtown dollars per square foot building valuations, and also per square foot building rent downtown, so that we can do the math and see that we will generate enough additional income from the property taxes of this floor that would not be there otherwise. And then for that privilege, we will work through a master lease agreement with MDHA so that the owner is renting the properties at market value. They are not going out losing any money or anything. MDHA or another qualified third party will then income qualify tenants, and they will pay full value for the units, and then use this subsidy, which is put into the fund that is created by this bill 912, so that they can make up that difference between market rate and a third of that person's income, which is the definition of affordable housing. So this would be aimed at somewhere between 60% and 100% AMI, most likely. But we've got a chart in there that would give them a choice. If the deeper the affordability, the larger percentage of the floor area that you would need to provide. So hopefully this spreadsheet sort of shows how that math works out. It is kind of a general example. We will probably have more specific examples as actually property comes through. I've met with the Downtown Partnership on this. They've put me together with some downtown developers and building owners for a good reality check. They have said with a couple of tweaks, they are comfortable with this, and it is a tool that they would be willing to use and actually be eager to use, and that the more tools we can put in the toolbox, the better, and they think that this could be a good one. So I would ask for your approval. We may well defer before third reading just to get some final revisions in here, but I think we're finally close. This has been on the books for quite some while, and I appreciate all my co-sponsors' patience as we get all these final details worked out. So with that, I would ask to, I need to make an amendment if I can. So I need to move that amendment first.
Okay, so we're moving the amendment. Is this the late amendment that's referenced?
It is a late filed amendment, and it simply clarifies that the assessor is the one who would come up with the value of the taxes generated by the extra floor, not the finance department. We'd already made that change in Bill 832. And we need to do it in 912 to keep them consistent. So I would like to move the amendment first.
Wonderful. Do we have a second? All right. All those in favor of the late amendment to 912, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? All right. I've got 5 in favor of the amendment. Okay. And
now I would like to move the bill as amended.
Can I get a second? Seconded. All right, it's properly moved and seconded, so we have the bill as amended. All those in, actually, I apologize. I had Councilmember Taylor in the stack, and I had a question as well.
Okay.
I know we're trying to get to our guests, but let's make sure we discuss this thoroughly. So we'll go to Councilmember Taylor. You're recognized. Whoops, too many microphones. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Which ones can I turn off that won't?
Turn off the planning table and the admin table.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you. I would like to ask the sponsor, what is the 60% AMI rent? How much will that cost the Nashvilleian to pay 60% AMI rent in the DTC?
So the sheet has two sides to it, and one side gives the information from HUD on what the 2021 area median incomes were for households of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 members. And then from there, you can calculate what 60% of that area median income is. I have been using, for this calculation, a single-family household. We could also do it for a two-family household. I mean, this is showing that if we went with 60% AMI, that 25% of the square footage of the additional floor could be subsidized. If we go with larger ones, it would be a lesser amount. Does that answer your question?
It does. And is this in the DTC only?
This tool is for the downtown code only. I have another bill that I hope will be introduced at the next meeting that will be much more broadly applicable.
And my last question, who are we hoping to get into these units?
We are hoping to get people who work downtown but can't afford to live downtown. So your service workers and the kind of folks that the people in businesses downtown are screaming to have available for them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Taylor. I had a couple quick questions. Very quick, I just want to be clear and state clearly for the record, the only, Metro general funds that would be able to be encumbered by this program are those that are deemed a result of the bonus height itself. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it goes into this fund, which we are creating with this bill.
Thank you. And so as this is administered through MDHA, or I believe I saw an amendment at some point that allowed other entities, if they wanted to administer the master lease, would this particular subsidy be able to stack with, say, a residence Section 8 voucher in order to sort of close that gap for like a downtown property?
It is not specifically spelled out in this, and I'm looking at the lawyers in the room to see if she can.
I'm not familiar enough with Section 8 vouchers and to what degree that would, be allowed.
Matt Wiltshire may be able to help with that. I mean, the question is, can we stack this with other things? Or Hannah, either one of y'all. I mean, all we've said is we need this to make up the difference between the affordable rent and the market rent.
So
if a Section 8, and a Section 8 voucher essentially does the same thing. So I'm not sure how to answer that question.
I guess if either Hannah or Ms. Davis or Mr. Wiltshire were prepared to answer today, if not, you can get back to us. But the question is, could this subsidy program stack with like a Section 8 voucher in order to sort of close that gap for a resident in one of these buildings?
And while he's coming up, I'll say Bill 832 will be back before this committee on third reading, so we'll have another opportunity to answer all these questions.
Excellent.
Because they go together.
Matt Wilshire with MDHA. Good to see you all. I was trying to think of the answer to that as I walked up here. So as you know, council member, the Section 8 program, the property owners agree to rents set by MDHA, which are typically significantly below market. And then the voucher covers the difference. To the extent that the market rents on the units in question well, let me take it first. The property owner would have to submit their units to be part of the Section 8 program. So the way that works, private landlords come and say, yep, I've got these units, either it's an entire building or these certain number of units in the building, and these are part of the program, and I agree to these set rents, and I accept Section 8 vouchers for them. To the extent that the landlord agreed to do that and set the rents in compliance with the rents that MDHA sets, then yes, theoretically, I think it could work, but I think it would be unlikely that that would be the case, that these are going to be more sort of market rate-based rents. Which in the downtown market likely are above the rents that MDHA's program would set for Section 8 rents. Now, that being said, I'm really getting pretty wonky here at this point. As you all may recall from last year, MDHA was awarded a HUD grant to encourage Section 8, more Section 8 landlords to utilize the Section 8 program in areas of opportunity, which could include downtown. And as a part of that, there's an incentive to landlords by having a higher rent. The idea being that we want folks to move into opportunity areas so that we're not concentrating all of our affordable housing in certain lower income areas. So it might be possible that as an opportunity area, the rents that MDHA would set for this area as a market opportunity area would line up with the market rents charged by the landlords. I think it's unlikely, but we'd have to just test that out on a building by building basis. And in that case, yes, they could participate in the Section 8 program. And in that case, I think some of the incentives would be sort of skewed. Essentially, the incentive would be covered by MDHA as opposed to the gap for the voucher. You wouldn't need to use both the gap for the voucher and the payment from this program. But it's a great question, and we can work a little bit more on that. But I think the answer is it's unlikely to happen.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wiltshire.
Yeah.
Councilmember Suara, you are, too many mics again. Okay, you should be on now.
Thanks. I just want to thank the sponsor, but I also want to clarify that most of the incentives that we have or that we've had typically targets not-for-profit, and we're realizing that we're not getting as many units as we needed. And so this is a tool that allows us to be able to look at people that are developing downtown as a way to be able to incentivize for them to include affordable housing in those buildings. You and I look around and you see all those buildings are coming up anyway, but how do we make it affordable to residents? That's what this bill is purporting to do, and I hope that we support it, because I think people need to be able to live downtown if they walk downtown, and not have to deal with how to get to their job. So I hope that presents some clarification in some way. It's just a tool to make it affordable to people and open to more developers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen, would you consider it a friendly amendment to your motion to re-refer this on third to this committee?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Can I get a second to an amended motion to re-refer this on third to this committee? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. We've got 912 before us with a re-referral on third to this committee as amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? All right, I've got 5-0 on that as well. Okay, thank you all. Again, we have with us today guests Emily Barrett and KT Wiley on behalf of the Vanderbilt University Action Research class. They're going to be giving us a presentation on evictions in Davidson County. So can y'all test your mics real quick, and then we'll jump right in. Uh-oh. Give me 1 second.
So turn off the public table.
Turn off the public table. Turn off yours.
And then
Do y'all have, can you test your mic again, please?
Can you hear me?
You might need to speak a little closer into it,
Yep.
but yes.
Can you hear me? Yep.
That one, isn't there like a mixer somewhere that we can?
Yeah, we can share.
Is that the iPad where we can turn up the sliders, like the mixer? 'Cause if we can bump them up a little bit, that would be great. Yeah, if you can max those out, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. Council, do you want to be recognized? Okay, I'm going to recognize Councilmember Suara very quickly. Councilmember Suara, you're on.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say a few words before they start the presentation. I really do need to acknowledge Erin Akre with United Way. She was the one that came to me with this idea of looking into right to counsel, and we've been working on this with Vanderbilt for about almost 2 years now, about a year and a half. When you talk about the right to counsel, there's a lot that we need to do with it. This is phase one of what we're planning to be able to look into to be able to help our families with eviction and keeping them in their homes. So I wanted to acknowledge Erin. I wanted to acknowledge the Vanderbilt's staff and professors, and also the students. I think this is the second set of students. We started last year, another class is doing it now. So, but thank you all for looking into this. This is something that I'm very passionate about, and hopefully this will complete phase one, and then we'll go to phase two, funding and legislation. But thank you all for being here, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I'll turn it over to our presenters.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Emily Barrett. I'm here with Katie Wiley. We'd like to thank Councilmember Suara for welcoming us to the meeting today, along with Councilmember Sean Parker. And as stated, we're going to present some of our research that we've had in our class on action research related to evictions in Davidson County. And so before we get into that, I just wanted to give you some background on who we are and what the class is. So we represent sort of a group of graduate level students on Peabody College at Vanderbilt, working in a class that has existed for over 15 years. So some of the history of the class is that we've done projects related to the Barnes Housing Trust Fund. We've explored the impact of short-term rentals on housing affordability, and as Councilmember Suara noted, for the last 1.5 years, we've been developing research projects related to this question of evictions. And so today, what we're going to share with you is some overview of that research. We're going to first sort of contextualize some of the causes and effects of evictions. We're then going to move to discuss more specifically serial evictions. So serial evictions being tenants who face more than one eviction filing. And then we're going to consider some of these patterns within the context of Davidson County before wrapping up our presentation by considering sort of how we could address evictions, thinking through the right to counsel. And so I'm now going to turn it over to Katie, and she's going to walk us through the first step.
Great. So we wanted to first acknowledge some of the underlying issues leading to evictions. So if you think about, particularly in the context of Nashville, as the neighborhoods continue to become more and more expensive, the high housing costs push people out of housing. And especially with the job losses that have been due to COVID, people are having to face these high rents without that income. There's also a lack of access to legal representation. So folks who don't have access to a lawyer might not know their rights in the housing court. They might not know how to navigate an eviction filing and lack that support. People with past eviction filings also are at greater risk of a future eviction. So having that on their record, even if they are not actually evicted. So thinking about the impact of the filing itself. So we'll move to some of the indirect impacts of eviction. So thinking about Nashville as a site of tourism, as people are coming in from across the country and across the world, and they use these short-term rentals. So Airbnbs push up the cost of housing within our city. So thinking about that impact on people's access to affordable housing. And folks who have been living in this community for many, many years are being pushed out as the city continues to gentrify, as the housing costs become higher over time. So we'll also mention some of the effects of evictions. So evictions increase the risk of homelessness for folks. And it also threatens long-term residential security for people who've lived in these neighborhoods for many years and have to move to other neighborhoods or face homelessness. For families, this can contribute to decreased school outcomes. As students face housing instability and aren't able to make it to class or struggle in school because they don't have that stability at home because of the high housing costs. Thinking about the impacts on health, there's also increased emergency room use as folks are facing these stressors from a day-to-day basis. So in thinking about eviction filings in Davidson County, we used case-length data from 2016 to 2021. And as you can see here, there were over 131 defendant attorneys in the data set, over 6,000 unique plaintiffs, and over 37,000 unique defendants in this data. And we are especially interested to find that almost half of these eviction filings were to repeat defendants. So we became very interested in the impact of serial evictions as folks are facing eviction filings over and over again and are pushed around the city. So research has demonstrated that landlords rely on serial evictions to transform the landlord-tenant relationship to a collector-debtor relationship. So we wanted to think about the lived experiences of folks facing these serial evictions and the power dynamic at play when landlords are enforcing these serial evictions. Of the detainer warrant filings, and over these 5 years, almost half are repeated evictions of the same name. So thinking about serial evictions, folks are on average evicted almost 3 times. So thinking about the impact if you're pushed from one home to another 3 or more times, what that does in terms of your family and your ability to navigate the day-to-day. So the highest number of serial evictions for a single individual, and this is not for John Doe participants or the anonymous depiction of a tenant, but an actual person, is 40 times. So thinking about someone facing 40 eviction filings over the course of 5 years and what that means for them on the day-to-day. So this is a graph showing the frequency of evictions for folks. So you can see over 5,000 folks face 2 evictions. And you can see that the y-axis here is kind of condensed, but still 383 folks faced 5 evictions. So thinking about the impact as you're evicted 5 times over the course of 5 years, what that looks like for you. So in order to understand the ecology of evictions in Nashville, we wanted to think about the relationships at play. So this here is a social network analysis. And if you've never heard of social network analysis before, it's kind of like a web of people. So each line between 2 dots here means that they're connected within the data. So a line between a defendant and a plaintiff means that that defendant was in the filing with that plaintiff. So the important thing to see here are these clusters of folks. So you can see these 5 kind of clusters where there are many, many defendants interacting with the same plaintiff and the same plaintiff attorney. So if you think about the power dynamics at play within evictions, if you were to think about protections kind of upstream, thinking about how to hold ourselves accountable to addressing serial evictions and addressing some of the dynamics here. So here, the orange are the defendants, and the blue plaintiffs, and the green are plaintiff attorneys. And this is just a snapshot, so it's only 2016, but we looked at from year to year, as well as the top 10 plaintiffs and the top 10 plaintiff attorneys and the relationships that they had with defendants in this community.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, from that project looking at serial evictions, we also had this question, right, are there sections of our city where evictions might be concentrated? So thinking not just in terms of the people, but areas of our city, and how might this relate to the relationship to public housing, to MDHA properties? And so here, what we're looking at is historical data, so from 2001 to 2016, and we've mapped it alongside, so the red dots here show subsidized housing, and we've also mapped it alongside MDHA properties. And so again, this map has a lot of information, and we've provided the QR code here. It's interactive, so you can dig into some of these historic trends after the meeting. But really what we're trying to contextualize here is this idea that evictions are concentrated spatially within sections of our city, right? So you can see here that being the concentration along the axis from the northwest to the southeast. And thinking about how that corresponds to traditionally low-income communities or communities of color. And right with looking at this historical trends, we can see the impact of the 2008 financial crisis. And so we might think about the current pandemic around COVID and its effects on evictions, both in a similar manner and then also the differences related to the current crisis. So to switch us now into thinking about, okay, so we know some of the context of this issue, how do we address it? As KT's sort of the social network analysis highlights, there are some clear power differentials within the legal system. And so we might think about this right to counsel as being one way in which we can equal out these power dynamics, especially given the fact that 99.8% of cases from 2016 to 2021, the plaintiff had an attorney, but only 0.37% of those cases did the defendant have an attorney. And so what we also see here is that defendants who are currently most disadvantaged are most likely not to be represented. Moving beyond the right to counsel, we might also think about potential regulations that could happen around serial evictions, thinking about the continual effects of having multiple eviction filings on households, especially given the ways in which research has demonstrated that serial evictions are often used as a tactic by landlords in terms to acquire more rent payments, and not actually sort of always related to an eviction at the end. And so beyond just evictions, we could also think about holistic supports related to housing, so whether that be the legacy court, community-based mediation, extending funds to cover back rent. And then finally, as KT mentioned, we might also think about evictions as being sort of the end of the pipeline, right, the worst case scenario. So how could we think about even further upstream related to the various factors that are related to housing insecurity? So we could think about all of the different ways in which the pressures for development, the pressures of a growing Nashville are creating a city sort of like that requires or pushes out low income and residents of color. So that was a snapshot of all of the work that we've been doing in our class. We just want to acknowledge all of the various contributors to this project, both in terms of our professors and our fellow classmates. And we also want to recognize that we are from Vanderbilt University, but there are a variety of other community organizations and researchers conducting research on evictions within the city, and their insights further just highlight and supplement our work. And so now we open it for questions, and if you have any after this, please feel free to contact us.
Thank you all so much. I see Councilmember Hauser. Councilmember Hauser, you're recognized, and then I've got...
Yes, I have a question in regards to the serial evictions. Is there also an analysis to why these particular individuals face eviction over and over again? Was it because they didn't earn enough money, or there were health issues, or they were gaming the system? I mean, what kinds of research has been done to sort of say, okay, of the serial evictions, a certain percentage are because their income is so low, there just isn't housing available that they can pay for, or there are other issues involved?
Go ahead, y'all should be on.
That's good. So our class has not been able to address those questions as of yet from the data that we're using, but they are, oh, sorry, do you have a question? Okay, they are important questions to be asking, and there has been research done to show that if someone has an eviction filing on their record, they're more likely to be evicted in the future. So that is one determinant of folks' likelihood of being evicted later on for folks facing serial eviction filings.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is that in a direct response? Okay, I'm going to go to Councilmember Suara for a direct response there.
Thank you. I wanted to let you know that after the first set of research was done by the students, I actually went and met with MDHA. You find out that a lot of the evictions were actually from MDHA. I talked to Matt and I met to Dr. White. Some of them are not income related. And so MDHA will provide us, especially on the serial one, some of the information on some other reasons why folks are evicted from the property. But a lot of them were financial. So the student can only take it one step, and then the first time they just look at evictions. The second time I told them to go and look at it by zip code. And so if we need them to go back and look at something else, they'll keep doing that for us. But this is just what we've asked them so far. I decided to bring the research to you all because I think I did not want to wait until everything is done before we start doing something. So now we will start a conversation on using some of the money that we have for housing on right to counsel. And that will be a conversation that will be coming to you sooner rather than later. And we start looking at some other legislation that we need to do. But I did not want it to keep going, and you guys are not aware of what's going on. But we're at the points where we need to start doing something now, so you'll see more of that. When MDHA give me that response also, I'll be glad to share that with you.
Great, that's good to hear, because by now working on the side in which we do have low-income housing rentals, I see things from a little different perspective than before I was in the field that I'm in now. And so I think it'll be very helpful, especially when looking at serial evictions, because that pattern is different than somebody who just got sick, couldn't make rent, and now they're out on the street. So I would definitely urge you to look at that, and also look at lease violations as part of that. Because sometimes people get evicted not because they haven't paid, but because they are violating the terms of their lease. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hauser. And I'm going to go to Councilmember Sepulveda. I do want to make a note that we are already over time and we need to get to the planning meeting. So if everyone could please be brief. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're recognized.
All right, thank you, Chair. And thank you to the students of Vanderbilt, the faculty, and all community partners who helped in this research. This is very helpful, and thank you to Councilmember Suara for leading on this. I do have some questions. It would be great to know demographics. I don't know if I missed that, but it would be good to have that information, also zip code, like Councilmember Suara was saying. I do want to flag one thing. Sometimes evictions in minority communities, especially immigrant minority communities, and you guys probably have already talked about this, sometimes people don't know their rights, and so they think they're being evicted, and just creating an education around that would be helpful overall. I know that during our survey for the ARP committee, free legal services was one of the top requests made, and affordable housing was the top request made. So it's great for us to have this research as we are thinking about future policy and future funding going forward, but having that information would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go very quickly to Councilmember Suara for a note.
Thank you, Councilmember Sepulveda, and I can address that. So part of the work that has been going on simultaneously with the student research is that I'm having conversation with legal aid, with Hispanic Lawyers Association, and looking into that legal help. The research shows that only 0.37 or 37% only has representation. So we're already looking into how we can actually provide that representation. One of the other organizations that I've talked to, and there's more that we need to talk to, is Workers' Dignity. And they're looking into some in the immigrant community. Like you said, they may not even get to eviction. They just need somebody to talk to them about what they need to do, all of that. So we'll talk to some more people and come up with a wraparound service or comprehensive services. But you cannot talk about solutions unless you have a good idea of what the problem is. And this is the first phase telling us we do have a problem. Let me say that COVID money has helped with the work that United Way and MAC and everybody is doing. But this problem is before COVID. And we need to make sure we're looking at it now, because when COVID money ends, it will still be there. That's why we're talking about it now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I have one quick question, but would y'all like to respond to anything that was just said, or did Councilmember Suarez answer adequately address it?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say that I think your comment about not knowing legal rights is also situated in the right to counsel, right? It's also about people don't know when they show up, how to show up, and sort of advocating around what are tenants' rights and what they are, especially in the contrast of attorneys who know the law inside out, who represent multiple evictions in one day. And so I think what you highlight is really important in terms of thinking about how do we, what policies can we implement to sort of balance out some of these gaps in knowledge and power and in sort of access to resources.
Thank you. And I have a very quick question. There was an early slide where y'all contextualized some of the eviction proceedings as effectively converting someone from like a rent payer into like a collector-debtor relationship with the plaintiff. And I wonder, did y'all do a breakdown of possession only versus like possession with damages filings? And do you have like sort of those numbers, like, you know, damages being when someone seeks recuperation, possession being when someone simply seeks to have the property back? Did you analyze those numbers in Davidson County?
I can't speak to that, but yes, we did, and it's within the data set that we're using.
Cool.
I don't know if Rachel, if you know the numbers off the top of your head, and if you don't, that's okay. But
They could be emailed. I could forward them to the committee if y'all email them to
yeah,
me.
we can follow up with. So that is in the case link data, and I know that we looked at it, and it was sort of an area that we might think about looking into further, because it definitely gets into that like cost of how much are people getting from these evictions. So we can follow up with you on that.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to conclude this meeting. Thank you so much to Emily Barrett and Katie Wiley. I hope I got those names right. Planning Committee will be up next. And thank you all again.